Frank's parents, Abram and Katrina Wiens, were German Mennonites who fled Russia during the Communist Revolution, seeking a better life for their family.
They were very definitely fleeing communism. You could see the handwriting on the wall.
Though there were many signs it might be time to leave Russia, two seem to have stuck in Abram's memory. Frank remembers his father talking about them.
One was that he was actually tied up, hands bound behind his back in the office, and he escaped from that. Got himself untangled from it. He never wanted to talk about it. And the other was his favorite stallion that he rode was stolen from him by a communist with a revolver in his hand. Get off that horse, shoot you. These two instances I remember them talking about. Well, that would be enough to warn you of things to come.
And it was. The family left shortly after. Abram and Katrina, daughter Anne, sons Abe, Cornelius, David, and Art. They made their way from the village of Alexandrodar to Moscow, on to Riga, then to London, then Southampton, England, looking for transport to the west. Though there were many immigrants looking westward at the time, and it took a while to arrange transport, with a little luck and a lot of patience, the Wiens family was again on its way.
And you finally got your berths on the steamship that would take you across the Atlantic, which was the CPR boat, Empress of Scotland. And so they got on that and crossed the Atlantic. Terrible, terrible trip. Everybody was seasick, except my father, who swore up and down, boastfully like he usually did. He'd never get sick, not him. And he didn't, apparently didn't. Mother was in bed, down below in her berth. Kids were ringing up all over the place. Just a terrible mess, as most sea crossings were. But lo and behold, when we landed, Dad gets off on dry land and then he gets sick. How do you like that?
Perhaps Abram would not allow himself to be sick until his family was safely in the new land, Canada. But this was not to be the final destination of this travel-weary family of 7. They took the train from Quebec City to Winnipeg, Manitoba, and arrived at the CPR station on Higgins Avenue. From there it was off to Immigration Hall, a stop-off point provided by the federal government to allow recent immigrants time to recuperate from their journey, meet relatives if they had any nearby, and plan for their future. But, coming from a farming family back in Russia, the city life was not for Abram or Katrina. Because of this, their journey was to continue a little further.
They stayed around Winnipeg in the immigration area till Dad was able to find something. And he discovered a dairy farm was available for rent in Warren, Manitoba. So that's where they moved. In those days you would go there in a streetcar, you know. Streetcars ran up to Warren. And they were there 2 years and I was born.
Tragically, after all her trials and tribulations, after her long and arduous journey from their home in Russia to Warren, Manitoba, Canada, seeking a better place for the family, Katrina developed stomach cancer and died a few years after Frank was born. It was to be a prolonged illness before she finally succumbed. Frank, unlike his older siblings, remembers very little of his birth mother.
My mother lay in bed for a long time. And I remember my sister saying that she had called us always called us to her bedside to pray almost every day. I don't remember it. I was too young, but Annie remembers.
Though Frank was only 3 years old, Katrina's death stayed in his memory.
I don't remember my mother, but I do have these images. I remember that it seems to me I was holding somebody's hand and I was standing on some artificial grass and looking down into a black hole. And I believe that was the grave, my mother's grave.
The family, Abram, 5 sons and 3 daughters, continued to farm. But Abram couldn't look after the children and the farm at the same time. Adjustments had to be made.
Well, then my sister Anna, who was about 18 years of age, became our mother. Looked after us, all 4 of us younger. Dave, Art, myself, and Edie, and she was terrific. My recollections are all pleasant ones with her. Particularly Saturday night baths. She'd bathe me in the round tub, the kitchen floor, and then bring me out, dry me off, pick me up, take me to the hall mirror, long mirror hanging by the hall door. There she'd comb my hair, and then take me to my bed, and I would hit that bed and I'd be fast asleep. And it was such a pleasant experience, I remember that. And she was a great cook.
As good as Annie was at managing the home and looking after Frank and her other brothers and sisters, she would eventually want a family of her own.
She used to go out once in a while, and she finally met a fellow by the name of Clarence Pell. They lived not too far away. And one day she simply up and told Dad, well, she was going to get married, and he'd better find somebody to look after us. That was it. So Dad was left with a problem. Didn't like to face. He'd have to look after us or find somebody to do it. So he quickly found somebody. He found his first cousin, and he married her almost immediately. Her name was Maria Schellenberg, and she became our mother, and she was a terrific mother.